All right. Hello. What's going on? I'm Doug Cunnington here. Today we're going to talk about how to increase traffic for your existing content. This will potentially improve the rankings and help you get long tail traffic, basically. So there's really no downside to trying this out. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Let me know if you could hear me in the chat. I just heard myself, so I think it works. But if there are people in the chat, please let me know that you can actually hear me. I will answer some questions later on, or if they're relevant, I'll hit them a little earlier. But generally, I'm going to get into the meat and potatoes and show you exactly how to do it. There's several ways that you can identify the content that you do want to improve. And I'm going to use a tool called Ahrefs today. A lot of people are familiar with it. It's a search engine marketing tool. It's a bit overkill for a lot of things that people are working on, but it is pretty cool. And I'm going to show you, I'm pouring water here. All right. Not peeing or anything. That would be luxurious if somehow there was a urinal right in front of me. There's not. Just pouring water. So there's many ways that you can do this. I'm going to show you using a paid tool, and I'm going to nerd out a little bit and show you how to use a pivot table. And you can do this in a much simpler way. You could use Google Search Console. You could use Google Analytics. There's a couple different ways you could slice it. You can keep it very simple if you want to. I see Gaz is on. What's going on? And Ariel as well. So that is what we're going to talk about today. Jaren's on. What's going on? J and K. And am I a little too bright? Is the color a little bit off on this? I can't quite tell what's happening, but let me know if it's a little too bright over here. So I am going to use tools that are paid, but you don't have to, and it is not required. I just thought I'm going to do something a little more interesting. And the reason why is Christy and I are working on a case study for 2022, and she's going to be publishing a lot more articles. I won't say exactly how many. Her interview is going to be coming out soon, later on this week. She's going to be publishing a lot of articles, but she also wants to go back and improve older content. So she needed a little help to figure out, which articles she should focus on and how to narrow it down and prioritize. So that's the thing. If you have a site and you have a lot of content, or even if you only have a handful, it's much easier to 80-20 it and focus on certain URLs versus others. And by the way, it's, there's a couple different ways to slice it, and there's no, specific necessarily right way. I think for every site and every set of keywords, and the way you approach it is going to make the results a little bit different. Before we get into it too much, I'm going to like the video. So if you have a chance to like the video, hit the thumbs up. I appreciate it. If you're watching the replay later, you can hit the thumbs up. Leave a comment. It's always good to hear when people are watching the comments. We also have Simon on, and we have Laughing Hyena. What's going on? Before I get into it and start sharing my screen here, this will be like an over-the-shoulder kind of demo. Shout out to Ezoic. They sponsor these. Check out their Leap tool. I also will be talking more about Ezoic in the coming weeks. There's a specific site that I just turned Ezoic on, and I'll have results to share pretty soon. So Ezoic does sponsor these shows, and I really appreciate it. The other people to thank, there's two others. One is Odys, and we're going to get an ad. I'm going to take a little break later, let my voice rest for a second. They have premium age domains out there, so check Odys out. There's a lot of case studies out there, and it's a great way to get a head start when you are beginning a site, or to get a boost if you already have an existing site. Next, we have niche website builders. My friends Mark and Adam. Actually, I just interviewed Mark, and an episode came out yesterday. We talked about FU money. We had a very nice conversation, so check that out. But you can actually save a little bit if you order using my affiliate link. And you can, I think I got I got the information below. Yep, sure do. So I've had great success working with them. Shotgun Skyscraper campaign and just having them write content for me. We're going to be working on some more stuff here in the future. So keep an eye out for that. But those are the sponsors, and they keep ads off of the channel. They make these live streams possible. So even if you're not going to buy something today, let them know that you appreciate them sponsoring the show. David's on as well, and Ariel, Bradbury, what's up? Jason, and then Simon as well. All right, cool. So let's get started here. And thanks everyone for letting me know that you could hear me. If you have questions, feel free to ask. I won't get to them straight away. I'm going to save them to the end so we can get through the material here. I'm going to use a real example, and we're going to go with WP Eagles, best roof box. Alex did sell the site as far as I know, but it makes for a good example because it's a real site that's out there. Many of you are familiar with it. It makes it a little bit easier for us to go through it, and you can potentially see real examples and go look at the content. So I will show you how to snag some of these keywords. I will show you how you can prioritize them. I'll give you maybe a couple options on how you could prioritize it. And then I'll quickly describe some of the things you can do to improve content. And maybe if people are interested, you can let me know in the chat if you're watching live, or if you're watching the replay, you can let me know in the comments and say, hey, I would like to see a session on improving content after you figured out what you're going to improve, how to actually improve that content. I'll list it out really quick, but sometimes people want to see a demo. Derek's on, and so is Susie, and Paul as well. What's happening? All right, let's get to it. So we're going to look at best roof box. The actual content on the site doesn't matter too much. What I've done is pulled it up over on Ahrefs. So we can see the URL rating for the homepage is 34, and then the domain rating is 46. So actually pretty high, and you can see, a handful of links popping in. There are a handful of keywords, nearly 9,000 keywords ranking in the top 100. And then we have organic traffic is estimated on a monthly basis at a little under 5,000. Usually that's an underestimate because there's other long tail traffic that does come in. We can see some of the ups and downs just in the summary here. And generally, it's growing and getting more traffic. This is not 100% accurate, but it does give us an idea. And I think Alex sold it for something like 70,000. So it is a site that you can use as an example here. What we're going to do is click on the organic keywords section right here. So you can see I've already done that, and it's open in this tab. So there are 6,200 keywords listed here, and I didn't filter any out. I just pulled down the CSV, and then I popped it up over on Google Docs. So you can filter and do some things with the filtering mechanisms on Ahrefs, but I did not. I just wanted the raw data over here in a spreadsheet so that I could do things myself and just pull one sort of master CSV report. So I'm over here, and I very lightly formatted. So I bolded the top. This is from my consulting days. So I bolded the top, and then I froze the top row. And the other thing that I'm going to do, just so I could see it a little bit better, and it'll become apparent here shortly, I'm going to take the current URL and I'm going to drag it over to column A. So we have this here, and I'll just open that up a little bit. And we see the keyword, which is ranking. And again, we have like 6,207 rows on this particular spreadsheet. So that is 6,000 keywords that it's ranking for. But some of you out there might be thinking already, hey, many of these URLs are ranking for a lot of keywords. You're right. They are. It is ranking for a lot of keywords. So what we're going to do is just sort those URLs. So I'm going to filter here, and that does give us the ability to click, and then we can sort them. So we'll just sort them, and we'll see, the home page ranks for a lot of stuff, and this is, largely meaningless for, a lot of the stuff we're looking at, but we can see like this particular post is ranking for probably about 20 different keywords, and we'll see that again and again. It's totally natural for many of these keywords to align to just one single URL. So what we're trying to do is find the URLs that we want to focus on. So there's a couple ways that we can look at it. And what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to geek out with a pivot table here in a second, is create a pivot table. And then we can kind of look at the data in a more strategic way. And this is very quick also. Let me know in the chat or in the comments if you are familiar with pivot tables, if you've used them before, and if you understand the magic. They kind of aggregate data and allow you to tease out some information, and it will be very straightforward. Two things I'm going to pop on the full screen. I learned a few things when I had the corporate job. I'm a PMP, project management professional, and that was helpful. Sure, it's not bad. But I learned how to use spreadsheets. And a couple things that you can do with spreadsheets are VLOOKUPs, pivot tables. A lot of people don't know how to use them. So if you're one of the people that don't know anything about VLOOKUPs or pivot tables, go watch some videos on YouTube, learn how to use it, and then people will think you're a fucking magician, because you'll be able to do things much faster with far fewer mistakes, and it is absolutely amazing. So a couple of the things that I did once I learned how to use VLOOKUPs and pivot tables is I would get a spreadsheet from a coworker and maybe some sort of a process where they were manually looking things up when they should have been using VLOOKUPs and formulas. Because when you look up things by hand, manually, you make mistakes. It's virtually impossible to get everything right. It's very hard to do, and it requires a lot of focus, and there's literally functions that help you do things so that you can avoid those mistakes. All right. Now, let's get back to the show. So all you have to do is, I don't even know if you have to select everything, but I'm selecting everything here. And then you go to data, I think, is that where it is? Tools. Is it tools? No, that's right. Data, and then there should be pivot table or insert. It's insert. Go to insert, pivot table. I'm going to put it on a new sheet, so we got some room to work. And you'll see, emptiness. There's nothing in this sheet yet. And I don't use pivot tables on a daily basis anymore. I used to all the time. So I kind of had to fumble my way through it a little bit. And the good part is, even if you make like a little mistake, you can change things up and you end up arriving at some pretty cool ideas. So one thing I know is I want to have all of the URLs listed, and then I want a way to prioritize them, potentially by the search volume of all the keywords that particular URL ranks for. And I also want to consider the keyword difficulty, the KD. Potentially, it could be interesting if I look at the current position of the URL based on the average ranking of each one of the keywords. So all of those are interesting pieces of data that will help you prioritize what order you want to work on the URLs. And I'm very much an 80-20 person, right? You could go back and improve every single piece of content, but if we're thinking about a site that has, dozens or hundreds of articles, that's a lot to bite off. And you may just want to hit the low-hanging fruit and just get into, where you can get the most leverage for your unit of effort, or the unit of effort of your virtual assistant or whoever is doing this work. So, like I said, I know I want the rows to be the current URL. So we'll say current URL, and then we have all of them listed right here. It populates off the bat. We don't have duplicates. Remember over here, we had the same one listed a bunch. So now it's just one URL all the way down. All right. So that's very helpful. What do we want in the columns? Well, sure would be nice to see maybe the search volume, because like right now, these are just listed kind of in alphabetical order. So it'll be nice to see the search volume. And you can see I goofed it up there. So we don't actually want that to be a column. Just a happy accident. See, there's nothing bad that happened. I just X'd it out so we can move forward here. We want the values to be the search volume. And we can show the sum of the search volume so we have the aggregate. So this is a little too wide here and you can't see it. So I need to make this column a little bit smaller. So there we go. We can work with that. So we have the sum of the keywords that each URL is ranking for, which is kind of cool. We can also just put other data in there. So let's go ahead and put in the KD. Let's go ahead and put in the current position like I mentioned. Like I said, this is really fast. This is a really fast way to look at it, and I'll show you a couple options on how you can prioritize it. Again, I'm just going to quickly, make the formatting look a little bit nicer. So some of you may be thinking, the sum of the KD value, is that actually useful? Well, probably not. It could be more interesting to see the average. So we'll change it to the average in that case. And then the other piece is the current position. Again, the sum of the position isn't particularly helpful, but the average might be. So just at a couple clicks of a menu here, we now have the averages of these two. Well, this looks a little bit crappy because the decimal points are a little too big. So what I'll do is I'll make it 2 decimal points. That's fine. That's enough information for us. So what we have here is the sum of the keyword volume for each of the URLs. We have the average KD for those search volumes and keywords. And then we have the average position for the keywords for each of the URLs. So it's kind of a nice summary here. There's a couple ways you could look at it. And I'm going to go ahead and I think I can just make this a little bit wider so everybody can see what it is. So there's a couple things you could do here, and it's essentially just sorting. Again, you want to prioritize this stuff. So one option that you can do is just aim for the highest search volumes in aggregate and go by URL that way. So all you have to do is hop over here to how you're going to sort it. So currently, this is sorted by current URL, which is not really helpful. So let's sort it by the sum of the search volume. And instead of ascending, let's do descending. So now we have the highest search volumes in aggregate in order. So I would probably not do the homepage just off the bat. Typically, you're not trying to rank anything specifically there. You maybe can analyze it and take a look to see if you do want to do something with it. But this is a fine way to do it. You're looking at, the highest upside potential. You could also run some filters. So maybe you want to do the highest search volume in aggregate, but you also want to focus on the keywords that have the lowest competition. So you would look for maybe a lower average KD number. So you could come over here and add a filter and actually filter on a piece of this, right? So maybe you want to go to KD number, and you could filter it out from here. Now that may not give you exactly what you're looking for. So you may want to come over here, and I didn't check this before, but you may be able to filter and then say anything under a certain value. So you would clear everything, say anything under is less than, and we'll just make it up. We'll say less than 15. And we knocked everything out for some reason or another. So maybe you can't filter that way, but you get the general idea. And we'll select everything again. Oh, maybe I goofed it up that way. So I think that worked. I shouldn't have clicked clear everything. We're just going to filter everything less than 15. And then we have it here, and you're in good shape. So you can go through here and take a look, and this kind of gives you the prioritized list. And further, you could also look at like the average position and consider that as well. So maybe you want to focus on everything that is ranking on average in the top 20, something like that. Everyone's site's going to be a little bit different, but at least you have a way to approach it and prioritize and make this more of an 80-20 situation instead of every single URL. It can be very overwhelming if you're looking at it that way. So you can filter by condition again. We could say something with a current position less than or equal to, let's say 25. And then we have a much shorter list. And that was actually a very effective way. So I don't know how much content's on the site, but here we've narrowed down that big list to 25, which is much more approachable. The ways that I showed you here to filter and to prioritize and narrow these down are just options. If you want to look at it a different way, that would be totally fine. If you only want to focus on current positions in the top 50, that's cool. If you want the KD number to be higher, the competitiveness, you could do that. So there's no rules on this. It's just a way to approach it. So I'm going to pause here because I talked a lot. In fact, I have to cough here for a second if I can mute it. So that's what you do. And actually, my voice does need a break. So I'm going to roll the ad from Odys to drink some warm tea, and then I'm going to answer some questions. And please let me know if you do have questions out there. Here's a quick word from Odys Global, your source for aged premium domains, and they're a sponsor of these live streams. So I really appreciate them making it happen. The featured domain for today is hapathon.com, and this was a domain used for application development for a project that focused to leverage mobile sensors and smartphones, this is a mouthful here, to identify the mood and happiness of an individual to analyze the data and suggest better life goals. So, I mean, that's a pretty ambitious goal out there, but the thing is, it's been around for 10 years. So I have to say in 2012, this was kind of groundbreaking stuff. I didn't get a Fitbit or anything like that until maybe just a few years ago, maybe like 3 years ago or something like that. And I have a Apple Watch now. The thing is, I think this is a great opportunity to take this domain and sort of modernize it. So like I said, it was created back in 2012. And the thing is, the technology has come so much farther. So we have like an Oura Ring, we have Fitbits, we have Apple Watches. There's probably other products I don't even know about. Our smartphones are a little more sophisticated. And I could tell you personally that I actually use my Apple Watch all the time to monitor my exercise, my steps, my sleep, my variable heart rate, and VO2 max. Like any data I can get, I use it. So I think there's a huge opportunity to have informational content around that. The domain rating for this is still at a 26, which is pretty impressive. And there are 109 referring domains. 106 of them are actually do follow. We're talking some pretty kick-ass links here from theguardian.com, bbc.co.uk, bbc.com, Business Insider, HuffPost, TechCrunch, Mashable, nyu.edu, ASU, and so on. There's a ton of fantastic links. So if you're into the sort of technology space, it's certainly something that you can take a look at, especially if you're thinking about like smart devices and smart watches around the fitness area. So pretty amazing, especially the age of the domain and the number of very excellent backlinks. I don't want to bore you by going too far down the rabbit hole here with the Wayback Machine, but if you have a look, you can see a couple snapshots back in late 2012 and then many throughout the years. So it's still indexed in Google, which is a great thing. And you can go a little bit deeper if you hop over to Ahrefs or another similar tool to take a look at the backlinks and some of the history and so on. You can get $100 if you use my affiliate link to join Odys. So definitely check that out. And, if you make a purchase, because I'm an affiliate, I might get a commission, which I greatly appreciate. And thanks a lot to Odys Global for sponsoring these live streams. And we're back. So my voice did rest a little bit. It's always helpful for that. So let's hop into some questions here. And what kind of overlay do I have? Oh yeah, that's me. You can sign up for the email list below. And if you want to get notifications for these live streams, you can sign up for my email list and to be notified specifically. So there's a link in the description here. So even if you're on my email list and you haven't gone through that, it tags you so that I can send you an email the day of, just like an hour beforehand. So very brief email. I don't mess around and waste time on it. I just say, hey, I'm going live in a bit. And then you don't have to rely on the wild notifications that may or may not come from YouTube. People have a lot of issues with that overall. So you can sign up. And if you sign up for the email list, I send you all my templates and systems and all that stuff. You can also check out my podcast, which I would very much appreciate you check it out. There's I broadcast on YouTube and over on the podcast, but I don't publish everything on YouTube. There's some extra cool stuff over on the podcast side. So do check it out. I appreciate it if you do. And then we have Niche Website Builders. So they, like I said, are a sponsor of this, and you can go follow the link below. You save a little bit on content, and those are great guys over there. They've been on the show many times, Adam and Mark. So let's go through some questions, and Niche Website Builders does sponsor the Q&A segment, and I'll try to find a little spot to put this this banner. So it covers up my head, but I guess that's all right. Maybe I'll put it here, and then I'll stand up taller. I should not be slouching down anyway. All right, let's see here. So Derek is on. What's happening, Derek? And Susie is on. And Goss says that you stopped the cider and you dropped a stone. And then I was like, how much is a stone? I don't know how much that is. World Games says hello. Bradbury says Ahrefs is a decent tool. The pricing puts off your average user. Yes, that is correct. It's pretty expensive, and I would, like I said, I'm gonna give you a couple other tips. It is not required to do this exercise at all. It is a useful use and a useful way to work your way through a spreadsheet. You can pull down very similar data from the Search Console. It was just easier for me to pull it from Ahrefs today, and Search Console may even give you more accurate data. You can use the ideas that we went over today. The other piece that I want to point out is I will probably edit down and just get this snippet, that was probably the most useful, concise, informational piece of content that I've done on a live stream in a while. Very quick demo, and it's a question that I get all the time, especially people that are a little more advanced. Like my audience does tend to be a little more advanced. You're like, how can I improve content? How can I narrow this down? I don't know where to start. And again, it shows you how to use a pivot table, which is pretty fun. Joanne is on. Jason says VLOOKUPs are magical to many. And Bradbury says you've never had to use pivot tables much. You loved VLOOKUPs and probably overused nested if statements. Yep. And Bogdan says, how much can I sell a site in its 6 month and it earned $150 in February, 10,000 page views per month? I have no idea. Depends on what it earned the other month. So you've just given me a snapshot in time, and even then it could be a little inaccurate. If it was earning $150 the whole time, then you can probably multiply 150 by something like 25 to 40 and get some relative amount. So that should be helpful. But if it just, you just started it 6 months ago, chances are it's at a peak. So you probably have to average the previous several months or somehow talk people into the fact that the site is worth a lot more than what it is. But if it's a smart person, they would probably push you hard on it and say, it's only got 1 month of earnings, significant earnings. Okay. And Gaz says you've lost 14 pounds. So that's pretty awesome. Congrats. You probably feel pretty good. And I'm going through the site here. People are, the chat's funny. People are trying to sell their site or something on here. Okay. Bogdan says, I'm not selling. I'm just asking. All right. Guy says, I had something crop up doing keyword research. The top 2 positions were Amazon products with no articles. Can they be beaten with a solid article? So this is one of those questions, guys, where the answer is yes, anything could be beaten. Can you beat that specific one that you're looking at? Well, I don't know. Maybe, but I'm sure you've seen times where a review outranks the Amazon URLs, the specific pages. So it's possible, but it depends on what the keyword is. A lot of times when that happens is not a buyer's keyword or review type keyword. So it's a little bit harder, but there's no harm in giving it a shot. All right, Jason says, is it me or is Google's indexing broken or wonky in the last few months? From what I've read, others seem to think it's screwed up and their indexing is messed up recently. Yeah, my observation is probably the last 5 years it's been not that great. So yeah, I would say it's not like instantly indexing stuff, and it could be the fact that there's a lot of people publishing like content that it perhaps is informational. Maybe it's product reviews, but Google is for whatever reason not recognizing them. I'm not sure. I mean, a lot of times it'll say on the Search Console that it is crawled but not indexed. And I did a podcast episode on this. Someone could actually look it up and figure out which podcast episode it was, which Doug.Show number. But I did a little research, and essentially Google says maybe we don't think it's good enough quality yet. And sometimes URLs will be indexed for a little bit and then they drop off, and others are indexed and then They kind of go back and forth and it's inconsistent. And to answer your question, Jason, I don't know. It seems to be giving a lot of people issues. And the thing that I've seen is if people publish a lot of content and if people have links going to their site, they seem to index things a lot more quickly. So yeah, I don't know, but I believe many people are seeing issues. Are you in the sandbox period, by the way? Odys says, I'm jumping ahead. Laughing Hyena says, is Odys worth it for someone who is a novice at blogging? I want your personal opinion, not the marketer. Well, the good thing is, usually I do give my straight up opinion. They are a sponsor, so I'm telling you it's probably biased. It doesn't really matter if you're a novice at blogging. The issue with using a premium age domain versus not is how much money you have to invest. So it doesn't matter your skill level so much. It just, if you have, a few hundred to a few $1,000s to invest in the domain alone, then you're probably going to make faster progress. If you don't have that, then maybe you just spend your time creating the content or put your resources to creating the content and know this it's going to take a little longer. The reality is you don't know if you're going to really shortcut the sandbox or if you're still going to have somewhat of a sandbox period. Just when you get out of it, you'll grow a lot more because you have those historic and aged links pointing to your site that are within the niche. So Laughing Hyena, you have to ask yourself, do I have the money to invest in a domain or is my budget a little bit tighter? And many of the domains are quite expensive, but some people have tens of thousands of dollars to invest. Some do not. And for the people that don't, I would say aim for the cheaper route. Bradbury says to Laughing Hyena, it depends if you're a novice who has a few thousand to spend to jump the queue a little with an age domain or a novice who wants to spend as small amount as possible and just learn stuff. So, yep, you nailed it. Prussian Prince says, hey, Doug, where can I send you my website so that you can review it? You can go to nichesiteproject.com/hire-me, and then that's how you get it started. One thing I don't do is review sites for free. So let me jump on my soapbox for a second on that. I used to, someone would send me their site and they'd say, hey, what can I do? Do you have any advice for me? And then I would do a little video review, give them bullet points. Hey, you need to work on this stuff. Here's some keywords I found for you. And they would promptly not follow any of my advice. And people don't take free advice very often. So I spend my time on other stuff. And if you hire me for coaching, I can tell you stuff. And if you don't follow the advice, it doesn't hurt my feelings at all because you paid me for my opinion. And then you can do with it what you want. But I was about to say I'm a busy man. I'm not a busy person. I am not very busy. I carve out lots of open space. So I am not very busy. I just choose to work on things that I want to work on. And one thing that I don't want to do is give advice to people that won't take it. And people have pushed back. They say, Doug, I would take advice from you, though, if you gave it to me. And the fact is I just have too many data points of people not taking the advice. And I would learn it when they would email me a few months later. They'll say, hey, I need your help again. Can you do something for me? And then I'd ask them how the previous advice worked out. And they said, well, I didn't do any of that stuff because I watched some YouTube video about something else, decided to do the opposite of what you told me. So, Prussian Prince, I'd love to work with you. You can head to that link that I just mentioned. All right. Bogdan says, when I look at my website on Ubersuggest, it shows me that I have 20 backlinks and a low page authority, but on SEMrush, it shows me about 140 links and a page authority of 12. So why is the difference so big? I wonder what you would see if you looked on Ahrefs. I think the answer is they have different data sets and they gather the data differently. So their database is looking at something completely different, and that is why the information is different. And if you look on other tools, I bet it would tell you different information unless they were pulling from one of the other sources. Susie says, what is a good budget for buying an age domain? If you go over to Odys, you'll see that there are some that are under $1,000. And depending on the niche, you may not need a very expensive one. So the main components of the pricing structure, and it could vary a little bit, but the age and the number of links that a site has will often, change the value, as well as what the niche is in. So you can have a look, and like many things, like how much budget should you have for the content on your site? Basically as much as you can afford. So I would say at a minimum, Susie, you would probably need like $500 or $600 to buy an age domain. And you do have the risk, right? There is a risk that it may not jump right out of the sandbox. I do hear those stories, and your mileage may vary. My belief, without any data to back this up, is that if you bought several age domains, say like 20 of them, and published content, say like 100 articles on each one of them, in general, the trend would be they get traffic sooner, they rank faster, they earn money faster, and you get out of the sandbox more quickly. There will probably be, out of the 20, some that don't behave the same way. Gaz says, my new website is my best yet. It's like everything up to now has gotten me to the point. Launched with 15 solid articles, which are the best you produce. Google crawled, not indexed them all. Yeah. So I would, like I said, oftentimes I hear from people that have published a lot of content and they get a handful of backlinks, and then indexing is quite fast. But if you are patient, should work itself out in the long run. All right. Nomad Overseas says, with the packages that you buy from Odys, are you just getting the domain name, or do you also get a site with some content, existing content? You just get the domain name. You can order niche website builders, small world, right? You can order from niche website builders and get content written, and they'll set up your site. Laughing Hyena says, I'm having a hard time determining whether a particular niche is oversaturated or not. What are some of the main signs of oversaturation? Well, Laughing Hyena, one thing I want to point out is I recently published a video, and I published the podcast version as well, of what to do if you're in a saturated or very competitive niche. So please check that out. Basically, there's no like hard and fast rule, right? Your saturation point might be different than others. I would generally look at how many other sites you see when you're looking at the keywords that you're identifying as target keywords. So there's no set number. I would say, if you're finding like page after page of competitor sites, then that maybe would make me a little bit nervous. However, if you find a bunch of competitor sites that are kind of shitty, and a lot of them are brand new, content's not very good, maybe they don't have much content, they have no backlinks or very few, then maybe you found something that's kind of saturated, but actually it's very easy to compete in because the quality is so low. So there's a couple pieces, right? Just because it's saturated doesn't mean you shouldn't go into it. The other part is, this will get real here for a second. It's all fucking work, right? Like, if you go for the easiest thing that is not saturated and not competitive, there's going to be a fucking million people behind you trying to step over your back and push you down and just walk over you. So if you go for something that's a little bit more competitive, you may actually be able to persevere. And that's why I often tell people to work on something that they're interested in. You don't necessarily have to be passionate, you just have to have that interest level so that you can push through. And, you know, everyone go buy age domains from Odys, right? They're a sponsor. But when it comes down to it, like, we're all thinking, how can I shortcut the sandbox? How can I do this as fast as possible? And you have a very narrow, short-term decision-making path. Your feedback loop is really short. And if instead you look at, hey, instead of 4 to 6 months, look at 5 years. If I just, even if I don't have a big budget, maybe I can just, write one article per week, and it's much slower than some of the case studies we see out there, but I'm writing good, solid content and I'm publishing one article per week. In 5 years, that's a lot. And if you make a little traction up front, you may be able to hire someone to write one article in addition to the one that you're doing. So at the end of 5 years, you could end up with, a few hundred articles. It just takes a little more time. So I got started in this make money online niche in internet marketing, which is very, very competitive. It's all marketers, right? But I came as an unknown person, and over time, I've continued to just keep moving forward a little bit. There was no huge inflection point. There was no time where there was someone shared my tweet and then it blew up. It's just been slow, extremely slow every single day. And sometimes it didn't go right. It went sideways. So I would say don't worry about it being too saturated. Long answer. Jason says, no sandbox. You've had the site for over a year. Some content posted at the beginning of last year, some at the end of last year, and some recently. 60 informational in total. Just a week ago, you had 3,000 visits, and a few days ago, you had 12,000. And now it's back down to 3,000, just bouncing all over. Do you know what's the main source of traffic? This is kind of interesting, Jason. Shady Production says, what's the best hosting provider? I rant on this all the time. The host doesn't really matter. I don't use either the one that you've listed. I use SiteGround and MDD hosting. There's a link for SiteGround below, for which I am an affiliate. Hosting is a problem that's already solved, right? You'd pick one. I suspect both of those are probably fine. I have no idea. I've never used either one. And Michael says, honestly, you wouldn't be shocked to see Google's algorithm adapt and put measures in to counter the age domain strategy. I think you could be right? It's typically an SEO type person that would do it. However, I think there are situations that are legitimate where a company acquires another one, and it's not necessary. That would be more an acquisition, not an age domain. I will tell you, Michael, since I started working on this stuff in 2013, we talked about Google changing the algorithm to counter expired domains and age domains. And to this day, 9 years later, it's still not in place. And oh wow, look at this. Eric says you're catching the tail end of this. And Eric just sent a super chat, which is amazing. I never talk about super chats and virtually get 0 of them. So this is amazing. What a day. I'll buy a beer with that or some kind of delicious beverage. Thank you very much. So amazing. And I'll tell you, Eric, because you're catching the tail end, I felt really good about what I showed you. So you should rewind it and make sure that you watch the demo. I ignored the chat. I pulled a CSV. We did a pivot table. I showed you how I format stuff. and it was very quick. So I hope you enjoy it. And if you have any questions, let me know. Simon says, what do I think about 301 redirects when you buy several similar domains? I think that can be effective. This is another one of the ideas that we talked about, through the years. And I think if you do too many 301 redirects, it could look a little suspicious. And we speculated that maybe that is, a little too much, a little too SEO. Again, it could be something that is natural, right? Companies acquire other companies and then they would list it on their website and say, hey, now we've been purchased, and the 301 redirect it to the other site. Totally normal. So I think if you got good domains and you did this in a very strategic and careful way, that it can work fine. I think there's still some risk to do it, but I don't know how to quantify that risk exactly. Guys says that you're reading a book that has been an epiphany for you. One of the quotes stuck in the middle of the, okay. It's a good quote, but I'm gonna make fun of it a little bit here. So it says, in the middle of a gold rush, don't dig for gold, sell shovels. That is a smart business thing. And Guys says the recent chat with Mark from Niche Website Builders was brilliant. Seems like a great guy, and the chat resonated with me totally. And in that interview, I think I did mention it, what I have run across, and it's no company that I work with or have worked with in the past, but I have seen people. So basically, someone was like, oh, I'm going to get into niche sites. And they never quite figured it out, but they hired a bunch of writers. And then they figured out that they were good at hiring writers. So they developed a content agency, and they grew a lot. Again, this is no one that I've worked with ever in the past or currently or in the future. So no one that I've ever advertised for or talked about. But other people have worked with them. I'll tell you that. So someone in the sphere out there. Basically, they created an agency to write content for sites like ours, but they don't know how to do it themselves. So they actually contacted me and they were like, hey, the agency has grown a ton. We don't know how to build a site. So we actually, we have a lot of people and there's some extra bandwidth. We want to build a site. And I was like, I thought you were a successful, niche site owner and you've created sites before, but it turns out they hadn't. And they were like, hey, can you train our staff on how to do this? Because we want to build our own sites. The funny thing is they're making a lot of money just, writing the content, which, in the right hands, I think probably one could publish the content that they were producing and earn money. But the overall piece was, guys, it was unqualified people selling shovels to people in the gold rush, but they don't know how to make shovels. They don't know how to identify the gold, but they're like, hey, here's some shovel-shaped devices that I'm selling to you, and I'm telling you it's great, but I don't know if it's good. And most of the people buying it don't know if it's good either. Hopefully that analogy was good. But you're right. If you want to make a lot of money, you can create a service or develop products around supplying people that are chasing the gold rush. Bradbury enjoys the swearing. That's part of the luxury, that I don't run ads, so I don't care. We have our sponsors, but up front I say, I got to be able to say whatever I want. I won't make fun of your company directly. And I'm going to cuss. And, I have full editorial freedom. Hey, when's Alex going live today? Is he going live today? I didn't check his, if he's ending or if he's starting in 5 minutes, I'll finish up here. All right. And I got to record another thing today. So Shout out to my other podcast, Mile High Fi, which is actually blowing up. So I know there's not as much overlap as I want between the entrepreneurship space and the niche site space, although you find wonderful people out there, and the financial independence. But I'm telling you, if you're interested in building these websites, you're probably interested in financial independence and personal finance and getting your shit together. Check out the Mile High Fi. Like I said, it's blowing up. My co-host, my partner, Carl Jensen, we just recorded one today, but he was big in the personal finance space and is still big. But we've been able to just interview really cool people, and it's a really fun show. It's just like you're hanging out with us and we're just having a nice time. So we've gotten a lot of good feedback on it, and I want you to check it out. God says, my current niche was a little saturated, but I checked out the competition and I knew I could do it better, and it's driven me to step up. So that's perfect. Simon says, how do I compare Majestic's trust flow to Ahrefs domain rating? You know what? Typically, I don't look at Majestic's data anymore. I just use domain rating, sometimes domain authority if someone cares about it. But yeah, I mean, you can look at the metrics, and if anyone has opinions on it, feel free to put what your opinion is, but I don't really pay too much attention. And thank you again, Eric. Much appreciated. I don't ask for them, but I love it when I get them. Joanne says, great channel. Thanks very much. Show Abs says, how do you redirect an old website to the new domain properly? That is a Googleable problem, and I don't remember the exact steps, but there's a 301 redirect related. You may have to do a couple things on the search console. Go do a little research. I don't remember everything, but it's pretty straightforward. When you do redirect, you may find that your traffic drops for a couple days as the indexing and the redirect propagates through the Google inner workings or whatever. So I've seen traffic drop off and then it'll pick back up usually between 2 and 4 weeks. Usually on the 2-week side, traffic will recover just fine. It seems to work pretty well. All right. And I hear that Alex is starting very soon. So I'm going to finish up here. I know I'm getting, it's not Alex's sloppy seconds, but I would say it's like the early, what's the opposite? I'm warming people up. I'm his opener. All right. And I'll take that. So if there's some extra people here that were like, hey, I was going to see Alex, but I'll watch Doug for a few minutes, that's fucking great. Get all the cussing in here. Alex is clean. He's a family man over there. Susie says, any advice on the process for creating a topical map? You would love to hear the thoughts about semantic SEO. So, you know what? I haven't thought that out generally, but I would probably lean heavily on just logic of how you would organize the content. I know there are tools out there. I haven't used any of them. I'm sure some of them do a really good job, but if you just, kind of mind map it out, I have paper all around me. I love writing on paper. I would probably start sketching things out and then go from there. You could probably formalize it a little bit more afterwards. All right. And I'm going to get through the chat here, maybe go a tad late. Alex will be okay with it. All right. I didn't check with him. I hope he'll be all right with it. Jason says most traffic is from the US, but a large chunk is from Germany. One of the keywords has 126,000 searches per month. 4,000 came from Germany. One keyword has 1,000 searches per month, and 11,000 was from you. Okay. Or 1.1 million searches per month. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Oh, there Alex is. I'm so far behind in the chat. Okay. He's here, so I can't go long. People are like, who's Alex? Alex, come on. Yeah, WP Eagle. Everybody got to subscribe to Alex. And blah, blah, blah. Okay, I think we're mostly through. We're through the questions. All right, I did my hour. I'm the opener for Alex. Everybody head over to WP Eagle Live. I'm going to pop over there. Thanks, everyone. Please subscribe to this channel if you aren't. Sign